Hello everyone, welcome back to Group Lesson. My name is Nathan, and this...
What the hell is this? This isn't your grandma's YouTube video. Ugh, this is a man's YouTube video. Explosions, sound effects, visual effects, great scripts, green screen. And if this scares you, go ahead and take a hike down to Dorktown, buddy. I can explain. I actually got married. Thank you. I got my computer science degree. Okay. I finished my senior year in college. I had a concert to play in for a final as well. I went to a Jane Remover concert, which was pretty cool. I had an expo to present my senior capstone computer science project. At our senior expo, they gave us speeches about our jobs, how to get one, what life is gonna look like with a job, and what did I learn at the end, you may ask? Please subscribe to this YouTube channel, please! I'm planning to hit a bajillion zillion subscribers by the end of this month, make $1 million a day, and then hire Mr. Beast as my YouTube editor.
I have a challenge. I recreated every single
Seriously though, if you love some good vibe and music discussion, please hit the like and subscribe button. And if you don't, I'll work for Lockheed Martin, and nobody wants that. Anyways, without further ado, welcome everybody. My name is Group Lesson, and this is Proto-Punk.
Proto-Punk is an interesting topic to cover as it's more of a relatively retrospective genre, as almost 20 years after its inception, we started walking back and categorizing things as Proto-Punk, long after it already existed. Taking bands that were instrumental, get it, to the formation of punk music but didn't quite know what they were doing yet, and then redefining them as part of the proto-punk movement. And when doing research for this video, you would never guess where some people point to as being the start of this movement. Yes, Chicano rock and roll legend Richie Valens and his hit song La Bamba is pointed to by many to be the start of something huge.
Hearing La Bamba back in the day must have been like 1 second hearing some nice Claro, and then right after hearing probably.
While you might hear this song and see it as a nice, upbeat tune, in comparison to the rock and roll atmosphere at the time, it was noticeably energetic, employing much of the simple song composition conventions that the punk movement would take and run with. Regardless, as we start leaving the 50s and going into the 60s, things get a little more confusing, as we have to bring up the genre of garage rock, which, for a while, was very closely intertwined with punk music.
But can we say that all garage rock bands of the 60s were proto-punk? Probably not. But could we say that all proto-punk labeled bands of the 60s were at least in some form garage rock? Yeah.
Because of this, many garage rock bands are also proto-punk bands, so we start seeing how proto-punk developed from other artists and bands of the past, particularly from the world of rhythm and blues with people like Buddy Holly, Bo Diddley, and Little Richard, just to name a few. What proto-punk came with was an anticipation of punk music to come, with energetic and aggressive vocals paired with a more simplistic song structure, categorized by more rebellious songwriting and not being afraid to go into more taboo topics. A period in time where artists started to combat the mainstream more and more, and we have 5 albums to introduce you to this movement. So, in order of release date, we'll start with 5. White Light, White Heat by the Velvet Underground.
The Velvet Underground was a band, obviously, formed in New York City in 1964 by founding members Lou Reed, John Cale, Sterling Morrison, and Moe Tucker. Although not receiving much mainstream success during its tenure as a band, the Velvet Underground is hailed as one of the most influential bands of all time, and especially to alternative music. What set them apart from their contemporaries at the time was their willingness to talk about largely taboo subject matters. They weren't afraid to go into the inappropriate, especially in their songwriting and even more evidently in their band name and having Andy Warhol as their manager. I'd love to go more into these 2 pieces of detail, but YouTube would hate that, so go look into that yourself. But in 1968, they released their sophomore album, White Light, White Heat, which released a little fanfare or was essentially dead on arrival. But what we have is an album that was recorded very quickly, and because of that, had a lot of instrumental improvisation. Much more lo-fi than their previous work, and a big departure in sound, delivering something that some people might call punk. One of the highlights of the album to me is someone telling a story of a man in a long-distance relationship who decided to mail himself to his girlfriend as a surprise, only for him to get stabbed in the head when she tried to open the box. Okay. It's noisy, raunchy, violent, experimental, and in our point in time, very highly regarded by just about any person whose job it is to listen to or make music. I don't really like it.
4. Funhouse by the Stooges.
We next go to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where the Stooges formed in 1967 by Ron Ashton, Scott Ashton, David Alexander, and of course Iggy Pop, who is characterized by never leaving a shirt on. Primitive is how their playing of style can be described, as well as controversial, as they did some pretty wild stuff on stage. But regardless of that, they are regarded as one of the best bands of all time, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and in 1970 they released their sophomore album, Funhouse. An album that is just the definition of primal. It's a lot noisier than a lot of the other albums on this list and perfectly mirrors the punk movement and what would come after it. One thing I noticed, however, to me at least, it was very reminiscent of the no wave scene that would also happen in New York City in the late 70s. No wave was a genre and movement popular in downtown New York City that sought to combat new wave in the mainstream at the time, taking punk rock and making it a little more noisy and avant-garde. And I can't help but feel like Funhouse is a whole lot of that. Their sound was awesome, and this Iggy Pop guy seems pretty sick. So why don't we go ahead and listen to some more of his music.
I slept with Sable when she was 13.
Damn it.
3. The Modern Lovers by the Modern Lovers.
Now we land in Massachusetts, where the band The Modern Lovers forms in 1970, creating their one and only album in the same year. One and done type of deal, as just 4 years later the band would disband and move on to bigger and better things. Literally. The drummer David Robinson would join the Cars, and their keyboardist Jerry Harrison would join the Talking Heads. Jonathan Richman, however, the band's founder, would carry on the band's name and make kids music. What the hell? Regardless, what the band did make together is really great. What this album brings, influences aside, is a great narrative and a tale of maneuvering around the awkwardness of being young. Much of the lyrics just about being in love or just living life as a teenager and what comes with that. The whole thing is very reminiscent of the Velvet Underground, but it was still able to carve out its own corner in rock history, wearing its influences on its sleeve and making what many would call a masterpiece.
2. New York Dolls by the New York Dolls.
Next, we go back to New York City to visit some New York Dolls. Ooh la la, who are these gentlemen? One of the first punk rock bands to come out of the New York City scene, the New York Dolls formed in 1971 with vocalist David Johansen, guitarist Johnny Thunders, bassist Arthur Kane, guitarist and pianist Sylvain, and drummer Jerry Nolan. Jesus, that's like 1 million people. Are you even allowed to have that many people in a band? Okay, that's just greedy. Not only pioneers in punk rock, but also very prominent in the glam rock scene, obviously, because damn, even if they made bad music, at least they looked good while doing it. But luckily for us, they actually made great music, especially with their debut self-titled album that released in 1973. The band didn't even get picked up by a record label until that same year because nobody wanted to work with them because of their image and style. The best parts. And it comes together in this album with a challenging go-to-old punk rock album. This was one of my favorites to listen to because it had just the right amount of disorder in the production, songwriting that defined the punk rock genre, paired with a controversial stage presence. This is as punk rock as it would get. From image to sound, this is what punk rock would come to sound like. And if you had never listened to a punk band before this is where you should start. This was the start of a successful journey that ended in 2011 after a series of breakups and makeups, and left behind a legacy of one of the most important rock bands. Are you sick of me saying that yet? Because I sure am. And finally, we are at our last album in our Proto-Punk list. I hope you've been enjoying yourself. I certainly have. If you have, please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel. And if you want more content like this, drop a comment on what you'd like me to talk about next. I absolutely love doing this, and I always take comment feedback. Regardless, for the final album, I'm just going to get straight into it. Horses by Patti Smith. You don't understand. when you start this album up, as soon as you hear the beginning line in the title track, you will understand that this is an all-time album. I don't think I can put into words just how obsessed I am with this album and the rest of Patti Smith's work. What I love so much about this album and her in general is I love how much piano she uses on this album. Her vocal style is so unique, and the way she's able to play with energy shifts from song to song is so impressive. The way songs like Gloria start with piano, then slowly ramps up an energy that leads to the introduction of punchy guitars, and having it all work together so well is what I think defines this album and her as an artist so well. She is able to deliver beautiful piano ballads just as well as she's able to rock the hell out in a way that I have not heard from anybody else before. Definitely the most unique listen on this album, just perfect in every aspect to a T, giving me one of my favorite albums of all time. She is a rock legend, a powerhouse in punk, and one that defines not only what punk music would be, but how rock should be in general. If you have not listened to this album yet, and if I could recommend one album off this list, please have it be this. Turn this off, go listen to it. I don't even care if you stay for the rest. This is just breathtaking. And that just about does it for this list. We've gone through Proto-Punk now, post-punk. We're really circling around the subject here, but that's for the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll try and get to a more regular schedule again. Things have been super hectic, and now I have this. It's not mine, but I can use it. So hopefully the jump in quality is cool for you guys as much as it is for me. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for sticking around with me and waiting for me. And I will see you all in the next video.